What's going on, guys? We're here in beautiful Cochrane, Ontario. It's snowing thick, heavy flakes. And what better time to give you a full long-term 2-season review on this 2025 Polaris Assault 9R. Let's get into it.
Sled Addicts is brought to you by Team Vincent Motorsports, Bergstrom Carbines, Ledger Performance, Westway Motel, Studboy Studs, and Radio World.
So when we got this sled originally, we were looking for a backcountry type sled that wasn't a Skidoo backcountry to compare it to. And my dad, being a Polaris guy always, we knew that there was no other option. So I convinced him that an Assault would be a good trail sled for him and it would be a good backcountry sled for me. And that's exactly what we did. And so far, the sled has 6,000 kilometers on it, and it's done exactly that. And our first introduction, me and Mike, to Assaults has been our buddy Kenny up here in Cochrane. He's been running them for years, and he uses them for trail and for off-trail. It really is a true 50-50 sled. And I think before Skidoo did that transition from the narrow front end to the trail wide front end, there wasn't really a comparison. Now, finally, both brands have good 50-50 trail sleds. So in terms of this sled, first thing I'll say, like any Polaris I've ever ridden, the front end is dialed right out of the box. You take it out of the crate, build it, take it on the trail. The front end handles flat, it corners flat, it does not lift the ski, and it's just easy to steer.
Easy to drive, for sure. Much easier, I would say. Easier steering compared to a Skidoo, for sure.
Yeah. In terms of suspension package, so you do have the Walker Evan shock package all the way around with compression adjustment. What I found from my time playing with the suspension is there definitely is adjustment. It isn't the level of compression and the level of stiffness that you have out of like an XRS package Skidoo from my comparison. The real comparison between an XRS would be like an XCR versus an Assault. But the shock package is still pretty good. It does handle the moguls decently on the trail. It's not as smooth as the R-Motion rear suspension in terms of trail chatter. So I would say I definitely give the plus point to Skidoo for their rear suspension, but this suspension still handles really well, and for any trail rider, you're gonna like it. In terms of the gauge, so the Polaris 7S gauge is awesome. Everything works perfectly on it. GPS, ride command works good. The one thing I'll say about ride command from my time using it is the only issue is that the trail data is not 100% accurate. It's crowdsourced info, so sometimes there'll be a trail on the map that doesn't exist, old trail information, the trail's been discontinued, or trails that just aren't actual trails, so that can be a little bit confusing. But other than that, the display works perfectly. It's in the perfect position, so when you're sitting on the sled, you see it right in front of you. I find it quite intuitive to use the gauge purely with the handlebar controls while I'm riding it, which I really like. And on top of that, of course, being able to track your rides. A lot of the time up here with this sled, we're doing backcountry riding, so I track it all in the gauge and shows right up in my Ride Command app. So I think that's awesome, and Polaris is definitely going in the right direction. It would be awesome if they could get official trail data. I just don't know if that's going to happen in the future. Mike, what do you think?
I think we should probably talk about the 9R because that was new for us, right? And
Very
I think
true.
it was new for the industry when we decided to convince your dad to buy this sled. So
We're like, Dad, so you're getting this sled and you're getting a 9R. He's like, what's a 9R? I'm
Yeah.
like, it's a 900cc two-stroke. He's like, okay, cool, I like that.
So obviously, you know, it's kind of the biggest two-stroke motor in the industry. It does have a lot of power, and I think in general, again, just drawing some comparisons between the Skidoos and the Polarises, it's an extremely capable and strong motor. Performance-wise, it's amazing. It pulls right through the power band.
Yeah.
Top end on it's amazing, and I love the motor. The motor's awesome. It's got tons and tons of jam.
Absolutely. I think with the train's coming. With the motor, like any Polaris we've had, they pull super linearly, like from the bottom all the way to the top, and they're just strong. They're super strong. This sled, what I will say, with a bigger motor comes worse fuel and oil consumption.
Yeah.
Fuel, not too bad. Kind of on par with other sleds. Oil, on the other hand, this thing drinks oil way worse than any of our 850s.
Yeah.
I'm curious like what an 850 Boost would drink in comparison to this sled, but it definitely drinks oil. When we went to Moosonee the other week, Len couldn't believe just how much oil this sled was taking on a daily basis. But you put oil in it and the sled runs awesome. So it's just something to be aware of.
It's been flawless for us too. No issues with it.
Literally 0.
Kilometers, nothing. Yeah. It's been great.
The sled has 6,100 and today will be the last day on it for the season before it gets sold. So it'll probably have about 6,400. But yeah, it's been flawless from the beginning. So of course, like all of our sleds, we also did stud it. We wanted to make sure we had good power on the trail and also good braking and make sure it's safe for my dad because my dad's known to blow a corner here and there. So that works good. Those are Stud Boy PowerPoint studs and backers, same like we always use.
Yeah, so it's a 1.6 track out the back, really good for off-trail riding, also works well for on-trail riding, with a 1.675-inch stud in them, and we do the doubles just like we do on every sled. Yeah. Hooks up great. You know, a couple of things with the Polaris that I absolutely love, and we've talked about it before, but the transfer on this sled is phenomenal. Yeah, the skis are in the air, uncoupled suspension, it hooks up and goes instantly. No track spin whatsoever. It really does work well. Up front, we did end up putting the gripper skis, which was a bit of a challenge, let's just say, when I first put them on. And I don't know what happened, but the bolt got stuck. We actually had to send it back to Ledger, and he had to like figure out a way to get them out. For some reason, the ski bolt.
He said, he's like, I don't even know how Mike got it in there.
I was hammering in a ski bolt. Unless it was the wrong bolt, I don't think it was, but it was a huge pain. But the skis are great. They're big, wide skis. Great for, again, same thing, for fluffy powder like we're going to be riding in today.
But they still work
and
well,
they work well on trail.
On groomed trail, yeah.
And they're paired up with our Bergstrom triple points. It's what we use on all of our sleds. We've just had really great luck, and they perform really well as far as trail riding. So I think overall 6-inch triples on the front of this thing, and it handles really well.
Yeah, and I was just looking at the triples yesterday, 6,000 kilometers, and they're still there and looking good shape. So I don't know what other carbide gives you 6,000 kilometers of with end of season riding in and in pavement and all of that. It's darn impressive.
Now, it's not all, perfect, and no sled is. So, a couple of the qualms that I have specifically with Polaris, for me, I don't love the ergos. Yeah. I don't think the seating position is as good compared to other sleds. And one of the big things that Jesse and I talk a lot about is how much the shins are actually in the panels when you're riding the sled on the trails.
Yeah, so right now the clips of my boas are smacking right in and pushing into my shins.
Yeah.
If I keep my toes out and my heels in the air, then I can sit like that. Yeah. But if I want to keep my feet flat without lifting my heels up, my knees don't touch the seat. So that's something, I guess, it's also like creature of habit type thing, like something you get used to, but to me it's just not as comfortable as the seating position on a Skidoo.
That's right, and people, like you said, they'll get used to whatever they have, right. But if we're drawing comparisons to other sleds that we have and that we're riding, it's great, but it's definitely not as comfortable, in my opinion, compared to like the Skidoo backcountry as an example.
Even the Catalyst we're trying now, like the seating position on it, I also like. I don't know. I just can't figure out with this sled, and I've ridden Polarises for years. It was the first sleds I ever had, especially on the Matrix chassis. And even the Axis, I don't know. With the footholds and putting your feet in, I can't get into this position without pinching my shin. So I don't know if I'm missing something or if I'm just doing something wrong, but that's our opinion. I think everyone's going to have their opinion on riding preference, and the sleds that you put the most kilometers on, obviously you're going to get more comfortable on those, right? So you kind of got to force yourself out of your comfort level, which is why we log kilometers on all different sleds and why we added the Cat to the fleet for next year, is really wanting to showcase everything.
The other thing that I love about Polaris, that I think that they've dialed in, two things specifically. The braking is awesome.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Can't beat it. It's a great braking system. It works extremely well. Very confident. Inspiring going into corners. I love the brake, and I also love the clutching as well. I think the clutching, like right off the bat as you're kind of rolling into it, is really smooth. There's no clanking. It's just when you're coming from a stop or going to stop signs and then rolling again, it's just super, super smooth, which I think is great.
You reminded me when you talked about clutching the belt. So I did blow one belt on this sled about 1,000 kilometers ago, so 5,000 kilometers stock belt. And out of all belts I've ever blown, it was by far the cleanest blow. It was literally one cut through the belt. I pulled it out. There was zero shrapnel, and I changed the belt. I will say changing a belt on this sled is less intuitive, I think, than a BRP product in terms of how to actually get to the clutch area. Like there's twists that you have to take off and pull it back. There's some tabs you have to move to get access to the secondary, versus on the Dews, it's like right there. So that's definitely something I noticed. One other thing I wanted to mention before I forget, the handlebar warmers are unreal. All the Matrix sleds we've had, the VR1 we had before this, they work perfectly. You set your temperature on the screen for what you want low, medium, and high to be, and they just stay at that temperature. They don't burn your hand, they don't freeze your hand, they just stay and they work.
Yeah. So one of the other things that was a little bit more tricky, I think, when it comes to the Polaris sleds too, is we need to do a chain adjustment, which is also a lot harder to do on this sled. I looked it up online. You actually have to take out the exhaust in order to get to the adjuster. That to me is a bit of a pain. On the Dews, it's really easy. Just a small little ratchet extension with a Torx and you can get right at it. So that was the other thing. Again, you're only really going to have to do that at the beginning after break-in for the most part. But, you know, again, same thing, just back to mechanical. It's a little bit trickier to work on it.
What I will say, and I will give Polaris credit when you're comparing BRP, Polaris, there's a lot about this sled that is easier to work on. So being able to pop off the hood, we haven't had to change a spark plug.
Yeah.
But changing a spark plug on this sled is pretty easy trail side. On a Skidoo is much harder. The whole hood's got to come off.
Yeah.
Right. So they all have their pros and cons. I think, especially what we've noticed, the two things that are a little bit harder to adjust on this are changing a belt and chain adjustment.
Yeah. Other than that, you know, just a couple other things. Just riding the sled, I enjoy riding it. It's easy to ride. It's fun to ride through powder. Definitely easy to get up on the side and kind of move around on the sled. I find it really simple to ride. We have, obviously, on the backs, the South Simcoe machine brackets that we added to this one as well. And the biggest reason is because it's really important for us when we're up here 50-50 riding to carry fuel, and we like to add the gas caddy to the back pretty much everywhere we go up in Cochrane. So that's a nice little add-on. But other than that, fantastic sled. You know, we certainly been pretty happy that we've been able to have this one in the fleet too, and log lots of miles on it, and love it. It's an awesome sled.
One other thing I'll mention before I forget, kudos to Polaris for including the under-seat storage, super helpful. On our Moosonee trip, I mentioned this thing likes to drink oil. I needed room for more oil, and that's where it went. So super nice that they have that. Anyways, guys, so that's really our long-term review on this Polaris after just over 6,000 kilometers and 2 seasons riding it. Stay tuned for more end-of-season videos, and what I'll say, this sled is going. We're getting something new. It's new, but not too different. So stay tuned to next year. Take care, everyone.
See you guys.